As if they don't have too much on their plates. The Kings of Combat Sports Podcast, John and Wai. They'll talk about the things they did that day. They'll analyze the work of Vince and Triple H. REWIND-A-SMACKDOwn, 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 REWIND-A-SMACKDOwn.
Welcome everybody to Rewind-A-SmackDown. My name is Wai Ting and I'm hosting this show tonight. We're giving John Pollock the break as he prepares for UFC coverage tomorrow, Saturday evening. So you can catch him live with Phil Chertok tomorrow evening on youtube.com/postwrestling for all of that. But tonight, I'm very privileged to welcome to the Post Wrestling airwaves for the very first time, Kate from Montreal. Kate, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, and thank you so much. I'm privileged to be here. I'm really, thanks so much for inviting me. I've really been looking forward to this. I think it's going to be a lot of fun for me, at least. I hope for other people too.
I've been looking forward to it too. I think our audiences will be familiar with your name from a lot of feedback that you've been leaving, and I've certainly
do that.
And I've always appreciated your take, so I definitely felt like you were somebody I wanted to get on one of these shows when I saw that there was an opening, because I felt like you would have a lot to contribute to us. So I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts. But introduce yourself a little to our audience. Talk about like your history with wrestling and everything. Anything
it's
else?
funny because I've actually sort of gone in and out of being interested in wrestling. Like I remember sort of being aware of it when I was a kid. So this is back in, about the 19th century. I was into it then. And I guess I didn't follow it. It wasn't that easy to come by. So I kind of drifted away from it. And then I guess during the late 90s, the Attitude Era, when it really was part of a much larger kind of cultural movement, if you will. I
just might want to correct you, because you might have said 19th century.
I did, yes.
No. Well, that's quite a while. That's a long history. Wrestling.
No, I guess that's just me sort of wanting to avoid admitting how old I am, or at least exaggerate. But then I was following it for a while. Then again, kind of drifted away from it. I finally, I got together with a gentleman who's now my husband. And he was a wrestling fan, but for the longest while, he was sort of trying to hide this from me. And I remember I kept saying, I used to kind of follow it. I wouldn't mind. And so finally, he sort of opened up about this. And of course, I'm like leaning in and watching from time to time, like as the whole women's evolution started happening on WWE, I got very into following that again, because one of the things that had always been disappointing for me following wrestling in past was that the state of women's wrestling there was abysmal in a lot of cases, and with a few bright spots, but really nothing sustained. So as you started seeing more of the women advance on the main roster, I got interested in that. And I know we've spoken briefly about this before, but I have a really hard time getting moderately interested in anything. So like once to that world, it just kind of grew and grew and grew. And now I'm following all sorts of things. It's like I sort of went from like, yeah, I guess I'll tune into WWE to, I want to know where these people came from. Oh, now I'm hearing about all this stuff in Japan. Next thing I know, I'm watching Lucha AAA matches and getting a New Japan subscription and like checking out like all of these tiny little indie promotions. And that's the story of me and how I got here. And I as well as not being someone who can be moderately interested in things, I'm also someone who tends to develop fairly strong opinions about everything. So, yeah, That's the story of me.
you seem to be, have a pretty good grasp of everything, from following you on Twitter at She Rants About Wrestling. She Rants About W1 is your handle. So people can follow you.
I don't know how that it was kind of an accident. It's the name, it's She Rants About Wrestling, which is self-descriptive, and but yeah, somehow the actual handle is She Rants About W1. Oh well.
Somebody who knows a thing or two about having to add extra characters at the end of their Twitter handles is Andrew Thompson, AD Thompson __. We welcome him onto the show right now to deliver some of his news. How are you doing, AD Thompson __?
Hey, it's a pleasure to meet you. Wai, what's going on, my good man?
Nice to meet you too.
You know, like Twitter handles are just, I think, come on, like I got weird numbers at the end of mine. Like, you know, people are just gonna, whatever we want to name ourselves, it's a free world. People are just gonna have to get used to it. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the __ for life, Wai. For life.
Never get rid of that second underscore. It needs to be there.
It's unique.
There we go. Casey, Kate gets it. Wai, she gets it.
How you been, Andrew?
I'm good, man. No complaints. How the both of you guys doing?
You know, very busy in the world of wrestling. There's a lot going on this week.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot going on, I would say this weekend. So, and a lot going on just even today. So why don't you hit us up with the top stories?
Yeah, man. So I actually like soon as I put my headphones in, I heard you guys in the pre-show, the pre-SmackDown show, you guys are talking about Revolution. And funny enough, Kenny Omega just announced the rules for the Exploding Barbed Wire death match that he's having with John Moxley at Revolution. And he said there's going to be 3 sides of the ring ropes wrapped in barbed wire. Of course, contact with barbed wire triggers explosives on the corresponding side. And there's another thing called triple hell, where there's 3 zones on the floor that are wired to explosives. And then there's a 30-minute countdown timer until all of the explosives in and around the ring detonate.
Very interesting. Okay, so giving us some specific rules. I mean, I find it interesting that they decided to announce that right now rather than a perfect opportunity, which I think would have been Wednesday. One of my complaints about the Dynamite was not having any sort of live interaction between Moxley and Omega, and I think having a rules explanation, maybe even a demonstration perhaps somewhere in Kenny's weird shed, that would have been a great thing. What do you think about these rules, Kate?
I like you, I would have liked to have seen something on Wednesday to explain it, because again, just hearing Andrew talk, list through what the rules actually are, those aren't things that you automatically think of. And I worry that they're maybe overestimating how familiar their audience is with this concept. I mean, maybe it's not a big deal. Maybe the audience is going to be like, things are going to blow up and it's going to be crazy. And that, that'll be a draw in itself. But yeah, I would have liked a little more information, and I would have liked it in a format other than Twitter, so that, we had someone tonight explaining what a cage match is. We seem to have a cage match every 3 weeks. So, it never hurts to reinforce that.
Yeah, I think Kate hit a solid point where they may think that there's an abundance of the audience that already knows like what these specific rules are. Or I mean, I think the draw is they hear the word exploding, and that kind of draws most people in. But I think Kate, she hit a real solid point with it. Could have been like some type of demonstration, or like how Wai said, it could have been something exemplified from Kenny Omega's his cave where he was building building this thing.
What's your excitement level for it, Andrew? This match?
Oh, 9 out of 10. Because I mean, it's just I can't remember the last time that. Has there ever been a time where this has been an exploding type of match in the U.S.? Like, is this
Yeah, I believe like in CZW and like I think CZW attempted, and there are probably like indie promotions, but I wouldn't say anything at this level. Maybe since ECW, I would say AEW might even be bigger than that because of the national TV where they are right now. So, and certainly nothing I think consisting of like the performer of like a Kenny Omega or John Moxley being involved. Like, this might be like the most high profile exploding barbed wire death match ever in the US.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that got a lot of people hooked in right there, because on a national scale. But transitioning over to the other Wednesday night show, NXT on USA Network, was noted in the Wrestling Observer newsletter that there is a plan in place to introduce NXT women's tag team titles. Just to add, that has not been officially confirmed by WWE, but on the March 3rd edition of NXT, William Regal said that he's going to make an announcement on the 10th that will change the landscape of the brand. I was just wondering what you guys think about that, like, as seeing they already have women's tag team titles in place, and they have the format of where the champions can go from NXT, SmackDown to Raw. Like, how do you think the NXT, if NXT women's tag team titles do get introduced, how do you guys think that'll play in with already having a set of women's tag titles on the show?
Do they have a set of women's tag titles? I hardly ever hear about them.
They exist somewhere. Yeah. What do you think about this, Kate?
Well, and of course I'm joking. I mean, we saw there's discussion of the tag titles every week. Basically, it's just never exactly a highlight. I think, fix what's broken before you start adding new things. You can't. And right now, they've done a terrible job almost since the beginning with the women's tag titles. I think other than that excellent Elimination Chamber match they had a couple of years ago where the titles were introduced and Bayley and Sasha won them and had that very emotional promo afterwards. I thought that was great. And then they've fumbled almost nonstop since, and they've failed to develop any strong women's tag teams on the main roster. I think that there's lots of potential women's tag teams on NXT, but the whole idea was that these were going to be defended across brands. And I think that it's a real lost opportunity to introduce television audiences to some NXT talent that they haven't thought to bring some of the women onto Raw or SmackDown to challenge for these titles as well. They've had the champions go to NXT a couple times, but in a way, like I think if they really wanted to boost NXT and to emphasize the incredible depth of the women's division that they have overall as a company, then it would behoove them to introduce some of that talent on a larger stage, particularly on Raw since it airs on the same network as NXT now. I have no enthusiasm for this. I hate to say it because I think there'll be great matches and there'll probably be some really interesting teams, but just, I don't have the confidence that it's going to work.
For me, I think it represents maybe the continued lack of cohesion between NXT booking and WWE main roster booking. I think you can clearly see some of this in action even this week, where like you put as much value into Raquel Gonzalez and Dakota Kai as you have through that tournament. In any other kind of promotion, they would be winning those belts.
Absolutely.
However, unfortunately, because of these lack of championships, or because the people in charge of these championships are ultimately Vince McMahon, we've seen, I think, his lack of, save for that Survivor Series, save for like the that brief period where you truly had NXT integration. We've seen over the past year, like for some reason, a real pullback from him wanting to use Raw and SmackDown as vehicles to promote NXT talent. So it seems like they're not going to be mixing certainly like they're not going to have Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez show up on Raw or SmackDown with those belts for no reason.
No, and it makes like they have done. I'm very critical of how WWE uses a lot of their talent, but particularly on the main roster, but sometimes on NXT too, not always. But they have done such a fantastic job of building Raquel Gonzalez in particular. I mean, she looks like a real monster. She looks like, she looks like the biggest monster they have. And yeah, just to sort of have her immediately like lose this opportunity when her momentum has been growing so fast. It seems bizarre to me.
This will be a continued issue if it continued this way, because every year they're going to do the Dusty Women's Classic and they're going to have these, winners of this tournament challenge for the WWE championships, which the NXT bookers ultimately aren't in charge of. So I think something like this makes perfect sense. You're at the earlier on, you could argue that, like not enough women's tag teams to go across the board. But now you can make the argument that you could have stronger women's tag teams on NXT than you would the main roster, who does not treat them seriously at all.
Yeah.
So I think it is. Yeah. Sorry. You haven't, I
was just going to say, like, I think that's true, but to me, I would rather they try to integrate the NXT teams into the main roster. And if they don't want to put an emphasis on the women's tag belts, then have them feature more frequently on NXT than on Raw or SmackDown. But
I totally
get
don't
why that's not going to happen.
Man, I totally don't disagree with you because like the concept of like belts that allow you to float from one brand to another, I think that's such a valuable concept that they've never played around with.
Yeah.
Like if for instance, like when Otis or what is it, when Mandy Rose broke up with Otis, imagine if like they made a storyline where like Mandy really wanted to win those belts just so that she could visit her ex, you know, or what is it like? I don't know, a concept similar for the men to be able to like this kind of magic ticket to be able to travel across brands. It would be such a great device, but you don't have that level of communication nor creativity.
Yeah, man. Like I agree with both of you guys. Like I think they really should just stick to the current WWE Women's Tag Team titles that they have, because the format of these two champions being able to go across all three brands and just the amount of challenges that are available to them and the amount of interactions that you could have. I feel like if it is going to be a case of NXT strictly focusing on NXT with the tag titles, I feel like that could limit what you could do outside of your brand, just for the future going forward, like just for these certain circumstances where they have, you know, maybe we might want to see a Sasha Banks or a Bianca Belair or a Bayley or somebody along those lines end up challenging for the women's tag titles in NXT or mixing it up with some of the talents in NXT, and then, you know, you kind of limit yourself by doing that. So I mean, we're gonna see if it happens, that is William Regal's big announcement. But transitioning over to New Japan, we got another note from the Observer. Kazuchika Okada is currently working with 2 slipped discs in his lower back. Okada, he's going to be wrestling Shingo Takagi on March 6th in the New Japan Cup. You know, with Okada arguably being, you know, one of New Japan's biggest star, if not their biggest star, and working through an injury that serious, like you would think that they would want to rest him, especially considering they got a Tokyo Dome show coming up in May.
Yeah, this is you know, I guess the idea of wrestlers working injured is nothing new, but I think specifically here with Okada and something that sounds relatively serious, I guess it does kind of somewhat explain his maybe somewhat diminished role over the past 6 months or so. And a match against Shingo Takagi to me is like not the best thing you could be doing for us. But this, however,
I kind of thought Shingo was taking that one anyway, but yeah, now that hearing that, it's okay. And maybe there's some kind of interference or screwy finish or something to set up a feud for Okada when he's back at 100%. But yeah, I'd be really surprised now if he went deep into the cup carrying that kind of injury.
Yeah, I don't really see any sort of like, I mean, I can see potentially him. It's hard for me to see him winning the cup at this point, but can he, you know, challenge for Kota Ibushi's belt eventually at some point for a one-off? You can always count on a performer like that to like wrestle at 100% despite his body not feeling that way for at least 1 or 2 nights out of the month.
Oh yeah. I don't know if you should, but you can.
Yeah, that's a different story. Yeah.
And lastly here, Kate and Wai, I just want you guys' guesses on who you think the mystery people will be at AEW Revolution. That seems like the talk of Twitter right now. Everybody's guessing. Everybody's trying to make their pick. You've seen Tony Khan in these interviews hyping up the individual who's going to be signing a multi-year deal. Tony Khan said is one of his favorite wrestlers, and he's going to do great things for AEW, talking about matches and stuff. Firstly, I was going to go to UK. Who do you think is going to be the mystery signee, and who do you think is going to be the mystery entrant into the ladder match?
Well, see, my initial feeling, I was sort of thinking more of Hall of Famers, like older talents, but then hearing him talk about how they're expecting to get matches out of this person, right. I mean, I guess like that would lead me to believe that no, it's not quite someone at the you know, I guess a lot of people said Kurt Angle, but I don't see Kurt Angle being able to do a lot of matches. I don't think a lot of people are going to want to see him do matches because it almost diminishes his legacy. But my guess, which was one of the most popular ones, I guess, was Christian. I know that has, in theory, been discounted because supposedly WWE confirmed that he's under contract. I was almost wondering if tonight we were going to get some kind of mention that, you know, he was around, that he was a possibility, because there's been nothing almost like since just after the Royal Rumble. So yeah, I'm still kind of tossing that one around in my head. The other one that I know Tony Khan loves, but who again, like, is not going to be an in-ring presence, was Bret Hart. That I thought of, because I know he appeared with them before, but yeah, again, that's not an in-ring thing. As far as the ladder match participant, I think Mike Bailey's ban on travel is up now, so that if he wanted to join, he could. I don't know if that's going to be a name that's going to generate a lot of talk online, but I think it's a definite possibility. I know a lot of people were saying Ethan Page. I also wonder, the name that I was thinking of was Leo Rush, who I know has been a pretty hot free agent lately, and has said that there's people on AEW and Impact and in New Japan that he really wants to face. And so that does seem to be kind of an open door. The only other person I thought maybe, and this would, I guess, be a one-off appearance because he's been more linked with WWE lately, would be Davey Boy Smith Jr. Just because I think there would be a cool opportunity to have him face off with Lance Archer, his old tag team partner. And he was in a match with Moxley a couple weeks ago. So there's the potential that communication was open. But yeah, those are, I can't really, I can't really choose just one, but those are the names that are sort of, that would surprise me the least, maybe.
I mean, you've done a great job lining out pretty much like all the candidates, so I really have nothing to add. Do you, Andrew? Any other guesses?
I think Kay hit it on the head, man. But on the ladder match, like when she said Ethan Page, I was like, yep, that's exactly who I was thinking. Probably Ethan Page. But for the big person that Tony Khan is teasing, like the way he's hyping this thing up, man. Like, I know people was throwing out Brock Lesnar and John Cena, like people throwing out all these big names, and like I'm trying not to.
No way.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I'm trying not to get like that far. Like a name that was coming to mind that I could see him promoting in that light is maybe Rob Van Dam. Like maybe I could see him throwing his name out there. I mean, I know some people were thinking Chris Hero, and more considering him as an independent wrestling legend, I guess, if that's how you could brand him. Those are like the only two people that like came to mind for me, honestly.
I think the problem is that when you've built it up this much,
right.
It's, you're there's now about a 70% chance that people are going to be disappointed. And I think someone like a Chris Hero, or even like I was trying to think of someone from Japan maybe who could come over. But the problem is that they're not going to be really known to a broader American audience. And this is a show that's primarily directed towards an American audience. And so if it's someone who's out of a different milieu, then it really will get that backlash of people saying like, oh, I thought this was going to be a much bigger name. I thought we were getting Punk. I thought we were getting Lesnar. I thought like,
I feel like I'm experiencing deja vu after like, weeks and weeks of speculation with WandaVision and seeing some of those results after tonight. So I'm not going to say any more about that, but yeah, like I certainly know the effect of like maybe fan speculation kind of overtaking a very kind of little hint. But AEW, this is what they wanted. They want people talking. They want people interested to know who it is on Sunday. And 2 days out, it certainly is a major talking point of this show.
Yeah, I also saw today online that they said that Paul White will address the new signing on Sunday. Like the way they worded it, it kind of made it sound like we're not even going to find out on Sunday who it is. It was like he was going to say something about it, but that maybe that's delayed until Wednesday. But it was very.
They have to reveal it at this point.
I don't see how they couldn't, and that's why it's why it stood out to me. It's like, wait, he'll address address them personally, or he's just going to talk about it because one of these things is probably a bad idea.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, man, that's all the news we got for today, my good people.
Andrew Thompson, always a pleasure to have you on. Great job on the website as always. You and John Pollock, just incredible hard work every single day at postwrestling.com. Where can people find you, Andrew?
AD Thompson __ on the Twitter machine. And they can check out my written work over at the Post Wrestling site and my interviews at the Andrew Thompson Interviews YouTube channel.
And don't forget, he makes.
Great.
Appreciate
and
it.
Don't forget, he makes frequent appearances on Deep Impact on the Up Next feed, Bushby and Thompson's Wrestling Adventure on the British Wrestling Experience feed. So he's all over the place, this man. Follow him, @Thompson __. Thank you very much, Andrew.
I appreciate it, Kate. Nice to meet you. And
nice to meet you. Nice sharing virtual space with you.
You guys have a great show.
Talk soon. Bye-bye. I know a lot of you guys in the chat room have a lot of thoughts about all these topics, so we'll try to get to you guys as soon as possible. But first, we're going to go through tonight's edition of SmackDown from the Thunderdome. Are you ready, Kate, to dive into this show?
I am. Yes.
All right.
Let's do this thing.
So we start off with Michael Cole in the ring, and he welcomes Daniel Bryan. Cole asked Daniel Bryan why he decided to forego the Edge tag team against Jey and Roman at Fastlane in order to go after Roman Reigns. Bryan says no one even asked him if he wanted to be in this tag match. Bryan says everybody assumes that he's a team player and understands why Edge nor Roman asked him, but Bryan says he's making a change. He knows the company has their dream match in mind of Roman Reigns versus Edge. Everybody wants to see it except Bryan himself, who is going to do his best to make sure that it doesn't happen. Bryan reminds us of the story about him ranking very low in ambition on that company internal test. He doesn't know why he's so successful, but the only thing he knows is that he loves this, and if you love it, you don't have to work a day in your life. He's thought more about being a dad recently, and that's led him to putting other people first. But Bryan says he never in his life felt like such a failure as when Edge pointed to that WrestleMania sign after he lost to Roman Reigns at the Chamber. Bryan says he sat there and realized he had far more ambition than he thought. He says he knows he loves what he does, and in the last 3 weeks, he has wrestled more matches than Roman and Edge have wrestled in the last 3 months. The only thing standing in his way is Jey Uso. What did you think of this Daniel Bryan very fiery promo?
I guess congratulations, Daniel. I now want to see Daniel Bryan versus either Roman or Edge more than I want to see Roman and Edge versus each other. I thought he's fantastic. I mean, Daniel Bryan is just one of these guys who I question at this point if there's anything he doesn't do well in wrestling. And he's obviously just top tier babyface. He was an excellent heel when they did that. The whole run against Kofi was one of my favorite feuds of recent years. I think, he can always be counted on for fantastic matches. Having listened to this, I was just left thinking like, yep, hope he pulls it off. I want to see this, which is, I don't think what I should be thinking. But that said, I don't know if this was during the pro. I know they did like a video package in the middle of this, which was odd to me because I didn't feel. The worst thing I can say about this whole sequence is that a lot of it didn't really accomplish a lot that wasn't done last week. Like I thought the face-off between Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns last week actually was incredibly effective. And that this, I guess it didn't push things forward too much. But again, getting to see Daniel Bryan show that fire is always welcome.
I like the promo. I mean, save for a couple stumbles here and there, but it was very well done overall. He is full of passion. I especially love the statistic of him saying that he's wrestled more matches in the past 3 weeks than these two supposed headliners at WrestleMania have had in the past 3 months, which is very true. Like you mentioned, I think you continue to sow the potential seeds of an Edge versus Bryan feud, which I think they should go to after WrestleMania. I would say my only gripe with this is the fact that Bryan's booking has been so kind of inconsistent and rushed up until this point that it's really difficult for me to buy into this chase because there's really the chase, the story doesn't add up. He loses at the Rumble, wins the Chamber, but then gets beaten up by Roman Reigns, and then subsequently simply challenges for a match. Like at no point can I buy him, especially now that you have Edge already announced for a WrestleMania match and Edge versus Roman being already such a hot program. So
Yeah.
Bryan is one of those talents that I think, much like a Dolph Ziggler, you could always rely on like cutting a fiery promo the week before a pay-per-view to really get you excited because he's that good.
Mhm.
But like Dolph Ziggler, I feel like he's kind of entering a territory where it's like, I keep buying into you and you keep disappointing me.
You're never gonna this is always gonna be the one who chokes at the last minute. And that's not, in a way, I think the promo might have been more effective if he'd actually addressed that, if he'd actually said something about how he knew that he had been falling short lately. Because it's not just at Elimination Chamber that happened. You're right. It's been on SmackDown.
Cesaro,
it's been in other big matches.
People.
That's becoming an issue. And he even made this point of saying that he kind of came dangerously close to going from cutting a realistic promo to pulling the curtain back a little too much there, because he started talking almost about how he was putting other people over. Like,
it's one of those kind of wink, wink, if you know what I mean, you know what I mean, types of things. Mm-hmm. Nonetheless, like, good promo, I thought, from Bryan.
Yeah, definitely.
So Roman Reigns interrupts. He finds Bryan confusing. Bryan isn't supposed to be ambitious. He's a lottery winner. He's a guy who waits on the sidelines and sometimes wins. Sometimes it works out. Men like Roman are ambitious. They see an opportunity and they take it. He says Bryan doesn't actually love wrestling. He needs it because he has nothing else. Love is what you do in service for others, like what Roman does. Roman doesn't need wrestling. He does it because everybody needs him. SmackDown, the crew, the cameraman, Paul, Jey Uso, Daniel Bryan himself. At this point, Jey steals the mic from Bryan, says, "Don't worry about Roman. You need to get through me first." And Jey charges at Bryan, which Bryan meets with a flip and continues to stare Roman down. So I did not certainly expect a philosophical debate about what love versus needs means on this wrestling show, but I love this retort from Roman. I thought it was one of Roman's best exchanges because he took like just concepts of like, somebody's ambition, and Roman just like managed to flip it to logically tell him, you only love this because you can't do anything else, which I found really great.
Yeah, and that almost that in this kind of perverse turn of the heel on the face, that Bryan's love is somehow selfish, whereas Roman is very selfless. I'm like the only person on earth who has been not. I don't hate the whole Roman head of the table program. I like it. I do not like it nearly as much as everyone else. I think it's been good, but again, I think it suffers from me from being over. I think that the character, it's somewhat static. Like, there's been not enough development or exposition. I find, especially with Jey Uso, that I never got a sense of what it was that sort of turned him from fighting Roman to being on his side. I think that it's a lot of the segments have been very same-ish to me. And so I'm not getting that sense of growth and development that I like to get over a lot of character arcs. Like, I'd compare it to probably my favorite long-term character arc right now, which is on AEW with Hangman Adam Page. Like, this is something where you keep seeing the character kind of change and react to different circumstances, and you keep seeing a bit more of it. That's just my take. That said, I did think that this was one of the best segments that Roman's done with the sort of between this and the sort of split screen face off that he did with Kevin Owens just before the Royal Rumble have been my favorite bits, I think, so far. I thought that in this case, you did get a bit more of a sense of his thinking and of how he views himself, and this sort of very egotistical, narcissistic character who just thinks he's doing it for everyone else. I guess I don't know how many people followed the show, but the thing that it reminded me of was on Breaking Bad. The character Gus, at one point, he asks Walter White, what does a man do? A man provides. And it was that sort of this idea of, it was a similar thing to the villain really believing that he's there just doing everything for everyone else in order to kind of justify his own toxic behavior. So I did like this segment quite a bit.
He is the version of the Rollins character, except like intelligently done and like full of far more depth than simply somebody coming out here saying that I'm the Messiah. Like Roman, I think just encapsulate that. And I don't disagree that if you want to call it flat, Roman just kind of entered into this character without really like much of a transition. He was gone for a long time, came back, and whatever development occurred was off screen. He just kind of showed up as this brand new character that, he's purposely shocked us with. But I've just still found it so fresh. I find like segments like this to be so smart and so well scripted and so well delivered that like it's still really exciting to me. And it's exciting for me to see a character like Bryan play off of him.
I think when I say that, again, I think part of the, I don't even want to say frustration, but part of the issue for me is that I find it's one of these things. I mean, we were talking about things getting overhyped. This to me has sort of gotten overhyped. It's a very good storyline. And I really liked the character that he came back with. I was super when he came into the ring. You saw that sort of psychotic look in his eyes, this crazy new energy. It's like wreck everyone, then leave on his shirt. And I definitely bought into that. And I really enjoyed it. I think it's a much better direction than what they were doing with him before. I think I would be more excited about this match at Fastlane if I thought there was a real chance that Bryan could win, but that's not going to happen. Roman should keep the title. So in a way, I almost wish that they'd delayed something so that at Fastlane, what we were getting was Daniel Bryan having to do a match that if he won, he would get to be part of the title match at WrestleMania. Because I don't believe that Roman's dropping the title at all. And I don't think anyone should. So, so I think it could be a very good match, but ultimately when there's no chance of advancing the story or changing a story, then it's, somewhat enthusiastic, but.
Our next segment on the show is supposed to be Sami Zayn and Baron Corbin taking on the Street Profits, but as Corbin comes out, he says he does not want to tag with Sami Zayn and instead offers singles matches to the Street Profits instead. Zayn reluctantly takes part as we get Corbin versus Montez Ford first. Starts off pretty even with Ford demonstrating a lot of his flashy acrobatics, but as he's about to dive off the top, he is distracted by Zayn and his camera crew. Corbin hits the end of days and gets a pretty quick victory. And then this is immediately followed by Sami Zayn versus Dawkins. Zayn says Corbin owes him because he helped him basically win that match. Dawkins runs Zayn into Corbin on the floor as Corbin blames Zayn, says, "Screw you, you're on your own." Action spills on the floor early on. Zayn takes control. He complains about the ref's slow counts and tells the ref to get a metronome. Dawkins comes back, hits a double arm swing neckbreaker. Zayn hits the exploder to the corner, sets up for the haluva kick, but Ford at this point is screwing around with the camera crew, spilling water on the cameras. Sami Zayn is distracted. Dawkins gets the roll-up victory as Zayn continues to complain about somebody being behind all of these shenanigans. He starts to blame one of his cameramen. "Who are you? Are you working for the company? I never hired you." He starts attacking the cameraman, and we get this continued sort of build for this kind of Corbin-Zayn reluctant partner situation. What do you think of the segment overall?
Well, it's funny because I think when he was asking the cameraman, "Who are you and do you work for the company?" I'm pretty sure that was Blake Christian, who was signed to WWE not that long ago. So it's like, okay, yes, he does work for the company. This whole, I'm a big Sami Zayn fan in general. I don't really feel like there's a lot to do for him here with this. Like every time they've invested so much in the character of this sort of paranoid megalomaniac that his own story kind of overwhelms everything, any kind of feud that he might be involved with. I'm really not sure what they're doing with Corbin right now, because it's like he's still kind of the same heel, but if he's fighting with Zayn, he's not that much of a heel. So I feel like he's kind of a lost pup right now. But good. Like I liked watching. I always enjoy watching Montez Ford show off his skills. It's a bit, I guess, a bit of fluff, maybe a bit of filler. Something that I can never get around either with Sami Zayn. I don't know why his camera crew is always standing behind him. Like if this is this is a documentary that's supposed to be about him, you're going to get like hours and hours of footage of the back of his head. And like, I don't know why, but it's like one of these little details that once you notice it, you can't stop.
Might be a very, very special kind of like avant-garde type of directing with this camera crew. We'll have to see the finished product. I believe you are right. I believe that was Blake Christian, who was there last week as well as one of his cameramen taking the bump. But I think you'll ultimately have to get the Sami Zayn Baron Corbin team. I imagine I don't think they would be teasing it for this long if not. As if that's any sort of attraction. But I mean, the bigger angle here is just what can we do to get the Sami Zayn character pissed off? Because he is tremendously entertaining anytime like he gets frustrated, which is unfortunate for him, because the more he loses, the more entertaining he is. But he is fun.
Oh yeah, and at some point, I guess the thing is that when they do pay it off a little, like they did in the ladder match with Jeff Hardy and AJ Styles, it's almost like you're very happy to see him, even though he's this like evil character. You're very happy to see him get one over on people, which is, I think, if they're going to bring crowds back, that's going to be a reaction that they'll have to contend with. I don't know that crowds are going to react to him as a heel the way he's presented exactly, because I think he is very likable, and particularly if they're going to pair him with Corbin, that's one thing, going out on this radical idea of having a tag team that maybe doesn't get along very well. I guess the other thing that they could be doing is like setting up Sami versus Corbin. And in that case, if Sami's supposed to be the bad guy in that, I don't foresee crowds buying that at all. I think that they're going to be, any audience, whether it's 500 or 5,000, they're going to like Zayn more than Corbin.
Of course you are from Montreal, so there might be a bit of bias there, but I don't disagree with you. I think he would be one of those guys in certain markets that people would be turning. Yeah, but I'm biased too, aren't I?
Yeah. Sami, I think actually, just based on things I've seen his Instagram, I think his family, or at least when he's staying here, like we're actually in the same neighborhood, not just the same city, but I think he's actually from the area of the city where I live. Yeah.
Right on. Up next, we got Reginald in the back. He's kind of got a big role in this particular show as he is fired by Carmella. Carmella has caught on, and she watches SmackDown clearly and has seen all of his appearances, getting involved with Sasha Banks more and more. Reginald is officially dismissed. He is fired. Reginald, this just kind of, he can't be shocked at this point. He continually kind of like lies to Carmella. Like, I'd fire him too. This guy.
He's been completely ignoring her. Like, he brought her a glass of wine last week, but other than that, he's just been like following Sasha and to a certain extent Bianca around like a little fanboy. And I don't understand like how he was even still employed by Carmella.
Yeah. Well, I wonder what those sommelier rates are. Sommelier rates. What to say. Biggie is sorry, one more time.
Sommelier.
Okay, yes. I'll work on that.
That beef.
Biggie is returning next week, and we get a big video here hyping him up after the attack from Cruz. Chad Gable takes on Dominic Mysterio up next, and Ray is still selling his injuries to his ribs from Otis the past couple weeks. Gable works over Dominic's leg. Dominic comes back with a lot of high-flying offense. Gable cuts him off with a great-looking tiger suplex for 2. Dominic avoids a moonsault. More back and forth between the two as Dominic locks in a La Magistral Cradle for the win. Post-match, Ray attacks Otis with a seated senton onto the announce table, while he accidentally also headbutts the cameraman and then runs away with his son. So it's a win this week for the babyfaces, but I have to say, Kate, I think it's super weird seeing Ray run away from Otis and Shorty G as if like they're actually people to be feared, like on this show. And you're Rey Mysterio.
And I guess sort of, like it's just he has this long history of being a top guy in the company and a major baby face. So I don't quite get how, like, what's the dynamic here. And particularly since, Otis hurt him and that's okay. He's a bad guy, but in a way, Ray's like the senton onto the table. It almost seemed like a bit of a cheap shot.
To me, what doesn't work about this whole thing is the fact that like the heel motivations of Alpha Academy have not been spelled out whatsoever. Like one week, Otis is a like lovable, big baby face who we loves ham. Next week, he's just like suddenly a mindless minion robot of Shorty G, and I'm supposed to look at them as
who I don't think has. Yeah, like I mean, Shorty G, Chad Gable. This is not someone with a record in WWE that would make me feel, if I were Otis, that this is not someone who I think has a lot to teach me. Otis's record is far better and was far better before he hooked up with this guy. So I don't know why they're together. I don't really know.
The reason is because I think they're real life best friends. Like we see them training together on Instagram all the time. And neither of them have anything else going on. So I think that's probably the reason. But the decision to kind of make them this like heel threat for Rey Mysterio of all people to be fearful of does not click with me whatsoever. I mean, not to say that it can't, but they have not established like the threat level of Otis and Gable very well at all for me to buy into.
No, and I think that even before, like, they've always been kind of jokey, and the programs with Mysterio have tended to be more serious, more I think I just implied that a storyline about cutting out someone's eye was serious, but
serious to me.
I imagine it was serious to him too. I think that one of the reasons that they might have this going is that Dominic right now, he's obviously still, he's for how experienced he is, he's very good, but he's obviously still green, and he tends to be as good as the people he's fighting. And Chad Gable is a fantastic partner for that. Like he is going to make Dominic look very good, and he did tonight, I thought. But like I think with Dominic, you're still relying on people who can carry the weight of the match to make it look good, and that may be the only reason they have these guys all set up together.
Kayla is in the back with Seth Rollins, and Rollins wants to know why Cesaro swung him so many times last week. Rollins says he thinks it's because Cesaro is afraid of him, and so he wanted to embarrass him. Out comes Buddy Murphy. After months away, of course, Rollins' former disciple making his big return. No Aaliyah by his side. Murphy says he wants to help Rollins with this Cesaro situation, and Rollins proceeds to tell him to get out of his sight right now. So, in case you guys forgot, everybody, the last time we saw Buddy Murphy, he defeated Seth Rollins, basically got him out of the company for several months, as he left with his new family, the Mysterios, and his new girlfriend, Aaliyah, off into the sunset. And something must have happened in that sunset. Like, we know a lot about quarantine affecting relationships lately. Maybe that's what happened with these two, because he did not have Aaliyah by his side, seemingly had no kind of like need or care for the Mysterios, and just what? Just getting rid of all that character development to go back to Seth Rollins? What's going on here, Kate?
I wish I could tell you. I guess the slight sense of excitement I had about Buddy Murphy, or just Murphy, I think now, because they stripped him of his first name, as they like to do for reasons. The excitement at seeing him back, because I do think he's a very good performer, was immediately undercut when I saw where they were going with this, because it's insulting, honestly, when the company does this. They just have him come back, and clearly we're supposed to remember that there was a relationship between these two, but we're not supposed to remember how it ended. I don't understand, and I'm not interested. I don't really care about this. I was done with it. I was done with it months ago. There are always aspects of this story that troubled me a little. And so I'm not interested in revisiting the Buddy and Ilya Mysterio storyline, but I'm also not interested in revisiting Seth and him, because I think that's done. They're going to have to do a lot of convincing for me to buy into this as a really viable story.
You know, at the end of that whole thing with Buddy Murphy and Seth Rollins, sorry, I keep calling him Buddy Murphy, and just because I want.
That's okay. I just called him Buddy like 4 times after mentioning. Yeah.
You know, like at the end result of all that, you would hope would be some sort of elevated status for Buddy Murphy, and seemingly with this lack of appearance these past few months, whoever is in charge now of SmackDown does not want to go that route. And seemingly with the way they booked Buddy Murphy on this show tonight, he is way back down to where he was when he started with Seth. So more on this later, everybody. Shayna Baszler versus Bianca Belair. They promoted this earlier in the week, or earlier in the day at least, after promoting that the Fastlane match between Shayna and Nia and Belair and Sasha would take place for the tag team titles. So no reason why this tag team match is happening, nor any real reference to this being a rematch from Elimination Chamber. It was just announced. Maybe there's more to the weird way they announced it with Adam Pearce that we'll maybe discuss later, but we have this match first. Sasha Banks is out, followed by Reginald. Early on, Belair goes for a head scissors in the corner, but Shayna avoids, kicks Belair in the arm, and continues working over it with various attacks. Belair is knocked to the floor. She rolls towards Reginald and then gets mad at Reginald being there. So Belair shoves him. He falls into Nia, who shoves Reginald into Sasha. So he's just kind of playing a ping pong here for everybody. Mm-hmm. Nia charges Reginald, but he gets out of the way. And so Nia ends up attacking Sasha. All of this is very distracting for Belair, who is put into the Kirifuda clutch by Shayna Baszler. But thankfully for Bianca Belair, she counters the move into the KOD for the win. Nonetheless, Belair is pissed at Reginald, so she blames him and specifically blames Sasha for almost costing her the match. She tells Sasha, "This is your problem, you need to deal with it." Sasha delivers a hard slap to Reginald to end that segment, seemingly ending that relationship. So, you know, yet another distraction finish, one of several on this show. It seems to be like, I mean, it is their go-to booking style, isn't it?
Yeah, these women so deserve better. I don't know what they're seeking to accomplish with Reginald, and I found some of his bits really funny. Like, I guess, it started to get just way too repetitive and he's too involved. I kind of liked him when he first appeared sort of on his own and started talking. I thought he was kind of fun, and I liked the idea of him just being more kind of a valet character, and that he was able to do some of the like fun moves that we saw from him. This, though, I have no excitement to see this rematch. I think it was ridiculous that it was halfway through the match before anyone bothered to inform viewers that Shayna and Nia had defended their titles successfully on Wednesday on SmackDown, which is really, you know, they were going back and showing Shayna kicking Asuka's teeth out again, which is obviously is a very striking bit of footage, but Asuka's not on SmackDown and she's not in the women's tag title picture anymore. God, she's barely in the women's title picture. It's a bloody title holder.
They have to be going to that match, don't you think, now at this point? I don't know if that was always the intent, but like Asuka versus Shayna like seems like it would have a lot more kind of heat behind it now that you have that incident.
Oh, definitely. And the thing is, like, so now I'm hoping that is, I don't know that they can have it for WrestleMania because I think Asuka's definitely got some healing to do and might even put her in question for WrestleMania at all. I hope not. I don't know how damaged her teeth are, but I'm thinking of how long Cesaro was out after that really kind of gruesome injury that he suffered. I just, sorry. Yes.
For me, it's like you have such a great program already in Sasha versus Belair. You've already announced the match for WrestleMania. It seems like they're going through all these tactics simply to fill this Fastlane slot to delay the inevitable like back and forth between the two. But I think they're going about it. To me, I think they're going about it the complete wrong way by, you know, detouring through Reginald, detouring through this kind of half-baked potential tag team, you know, championship reign that nobody buys. Will they get along? Like we've all seen that before. Just give me these two strong. Yeah. I just want to see
and Shayna came together. Yeah, that's this tag team that can't get along. It's like, okay, so I don't need to see it again. The worst part of it is that it's actually making me less excited for Sasha versus Bianca at WrestleMania, and that should not happen. That's that has everything it needs to be a fantastic match. I don't even think that you need to turn one of them full on heel, although I guess they've been sort of teasing that with Sasha. I mean, I guess you can have a really good match with two baby faces. And, you know, they both got a bit of an edge to them. And they both, I think there's a good story there where it's like their styles are very different, but character-wise, they're very similar. They're both these tough women who fought their way up and who really had to prove themselves. And that should be, it's just a no-brainer. This sells itself, and they don't have to, like, now as they're kind of overselling it, you run the risk of getting a little bit of fatigue. I don't want that. And that's actually what I felt happened a bit a couple of years ago with Becky Lynch, where there was so many kind of twists and turns that they had to go through between her winning the Royal Rumble and her being at WrestleMania, that hers wasn't the hottest story at WrestleMania, and it absolutely hadn't been. She'd seeded that Kofi was the hottest story at that WrestleMania, and they have to be more careful of this kind of thing.
Murphy versus Cesaro is up next, and Rollins comes out to join on commentary. This was like a 2-minute match where Cesaro basically attacked Buddy Murphy with his European uppercuts, delivers a big swing to Buddy Murphy, which Rollins took personal offense to because he felt like Cesaro was specifically doing it to mock him. Sharpshooter finish. Murphy looks like he's about to tap. Cole calls it, unfortunately, too soon, but, you know, Murphy ends up tapping pretty shortly anyway. Welcome back, Buddy Murphy. This was not much of a re-debut, and I mean, we could assume that he continues trying to beg Rollins to become a disciple again. Is that what's going on here, Kate?
I mean, your guess is as good as mine, and who knows if this holds over until next week. I felt like this was a case of just needing a warm body to sort of move this story with Cesaro and Seth Rollins forward. Okay, it's a new warm body. It's not someone we've seen in a while. Murphy's very good in ring. Didn't really get a chance to show it. I actually would have been happy with a longer match between Cesaro and Murphy, but okay, we're not getting that. He's a stepping stone. Again, I don't think the story with Murphy and Rollins has legs. I think that Cesaro versus Rollins has at least the potential to be a very, very good match. Cesaro is clearly a project for them right now. So if this is all they're going to do, then they might as well just as I said, put another warm body in there. You don't need to try to attach a story to it.
To me, this is another case of like there being too much time between the match and like, you know, all this build. Like, I just want to see this match, and the match will, I think, be a far higher quality than like, you know, I think some of the problems people have with the Seth Rollins character. So
I find that with Seth in general, that his matches are far better than a lot of the stories that go into them.
Mm-hmm. Reginald is on his way out of the building with his bags because, of course, he has been fired. He tries one last time to talk to Sasha, who shuts the door on him. As he walks to the exit, Shayna and Nia tease him. Shayna asks him if he wants to fight, but Nia says, "Oh, don't you see what I see? He's kind of cute." So they're teasing that Reginald is now going to join Nia and Shayna as a full-on heel, I suppose, to oppose the babyface team. So we shall see where that leads. Apollo Crews comes out next, and as part of this new Nigerian royalty gimmick, he walks out with a spear and 2 military guards. He is now permanently speaking with his Nigerian accent, and his justification for doing it is because he says this isn't a new Apollo. This is the real Apollo. This is how he talks. He is Nigerian royalty. He is a real African American. He says these are Nigerian elite guards. They protected his family for generations. He says he was too ashamed of his heritage when he was young because all he wanted to do was fit in, but he was never accepted for who he was. His friends would mock him at school, saying things like, "Do you live in a jungle? Did you ride lions into school?" But he says the truth is his ancestors were warriors who would conquer and dominate anyone who stepped in their path, haunting their enemies for generations. He says, like his roots, history continues to repeat itself like it did with Big E. And every time Big E disrespected him, all he can hear is his ancestors telling him to stand up for himself. So he sends a message to Big E watching at home, says he's no longer trying to fit in, and he demands a rematch for Big E's title. And he will be haunted by his total and complete victory. Now, it is a huge risk to come out here after the audience already knows you speaking one way and adopting a permanent new accent. He is doing the reverse Kofi Kingston. But I love the use of it here, Cade, because even though we all know it's not his real accent, he is doing this to make a point. He is a heel speaking this way to spite the audience because they have not respected him. He's using every opportunity that he gets to speak to remind the audience that we should respect him because he is Nigerian royalty. I really enjoyed this promo, but what did you think?
I thought he did a fantastic job with it. I think that the last couple of weeks, he has been as good on the mic and better than I've ever heard him. Funny enough, I used to work for a Nigerian family, and he nailed the accent. Like, the accent is absolutely like and he is like, I went back to look it up because I was feeling a little unsure about the angle last week. I mean, he is of Nigerian heritage. I don't know about all of the royalty, but that is his background. I think that that he has a really good story that he's telling. I think the problem is that he's telling it as a heel, and the idea that the heel is coming out and talking about how he was shamed for who he was and how he was racially abused, that is very risky because it's asking the audience to take the side of people who were being racist towards him, and that's not a role I'm comfortable with. They did this a few years ago when they were sort of first presenting Jinder Mahal. He did kind of a similar thing, and then they backed away from it pretty quickly with good reason. I guess given some of WWE's history of racial insensitivity, this is not the way I would choose for them to go about it. I wasn't crazy about the sort of generic spear that he was holding, or the whole image of the guards, which is not. I don't know. he could say, these are the guards who protected my family for generations. But I think that the image that most people are going to think of is, some kind of military dictatorship in Africa. And I don't know if that's, and first of all, it doesn't apply to Nigeria. It doesn't really apply to Nigeria. Nigeria is a very flawed but functional democracy. And that, I don't know, it may be, I thought he was great, but it makes me uncomfortable. And they're going to have to do a lot to make me think that they as a company can present this in a way that's not going to end up being gross.
Well, I can tell you that was certainly maybe my issue with all of this is the fact that, I mean, as an immigrant who understands the pressures of like trying to fit in by ignoring your history when you're young, this guy's a total babyface to me. This was a complete babyface promo. To me, he has far more relatable motivation to win this title than Big E has ever shown during this entire run. We don't really know a thing about Big E other than like, Hungry Man dinners. Clearly Big E, the man, the human being, has a whole lot more to say, but we never really see it in this character. Conversely, like this Apollo Crews promo, the reason I was such a fan with it is because I actually connected with him. I understand why he wants to win this thing, why he's out for respect. So those dynamics are definitely odd with me having to now be, conditioned to boo him. So I agree that maybe some of that is problematic. I didn't really even think about like the whole image of the guards and the spear and what that might present. So thank you for kind of illuminating us on maybe, what real Nigeria might be like.
I don't know that other people had the same reaction, but that was just the first thing I thought. I was like, ooh, this looks like news footage from the 70s of what Africa was supposed to be like. And again, I'm divided because I think he did an excellent job. And I absolutely like, oh, that's a great story. I want to get behind you. I also think it's going to be interesting to see in Big E, a lot of the characters based on being kind of a smart aleck and not necessarily treating people with outright respect. So if they keep going in that direction, I don't know that babyface heel dynamic is going to hold.
I mean, it's a character, I suppose, in a promo like this is a perfect time for Big E to turn up the seriousness. It's the complete we've always had about the New Day. They play around so much that like it's fun. Yeah, it's great. It makes us like them. But when it's time to get serious, like we want them to reach the next level. And didn't get it with Kofi. Got it to an extent with Kofi, but haven't had it since. It's Big E's turn to like really turn up the seriousness.
Yeah, and I hope that I hope that they do that. I hope again, but I'm definitely interested in seeing more of Apollo as a character.
Natalya and Tamina are in the back with Adam Pearce and Sonya as they complain about why Sasha and Belair had these tag team championships, this title shot again, while they've won several matches in this division. And Adam Pearce simply apologizes, says that's the match that was made. What was interesting about the segment was that Sonya did not defend Adam's decision. In fact, he kind of says Adam made a different decision. So they are specifically calling out the abrupt and poor matchmaking of this match here, which to me suggests that it's being purposely done for storyline reasons. And, we did, of course, also see Adam Pearce in NXT, though that was not really mentioned as a part of this. Like, he's been interfering a whole lot more. He's been taking a bigger presence on all three of these shows. And could this, Kate, lead to perhaps the end of Adam Pearce as a GM?
I'm not really sure because the thing is, I've actually really enjoyed Adam Pearce in this role. I think that unlike a lot of other kind of authority figures, he does really feel more like a manager kind of trying to handle all of these duties and I guess knowing who really has the power in WWE. That's sort of a realistic role for an administrator on Raw and SmackDown. I'm not really sure about this whole thing where they seem to be presenting him as both a heel and a babyface. Like, I guess heelish with apparently only with regards to the women's tag titles. we'll see. I do think that there is something brewing under the surface with Sonya. Like that's definitely coming, and I hope it does, because I really miss seeing Sonya in the ring, and I think that she absolutely belongs in the title picture, if not holding it. But yeah, it's this one seems like an uncharacteristic slow burn for WWE, so I'm interested to see where it goes. I'm not really sure why Tamina and Natalya think that they have a case when we already know who the number one contenders for the women's tag team titles are. It's Naomi and Lana, because they won a match about 100 years ago to say that they were, and this has just been lost in the shuffle. Yeah, they did. They have been the number one contenders since before the end of the Women's Dusty Classic on NXT. So it's like, if anyone has a very legitimate gripe, it's them.
Well, to drive home this like Adam Pearce thing, they should probably be complaining on Monday as well.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens with that. But Adam Pearce not making some great decisions lately.
No, apparently not.
We're in the back. We're with Jey Uso and Kayla. Jey is about to cut a promo, but Bryan runs in, attacks him, showing us that this is a meaner Daniel Bryan than we've been used to. We get like a really bizarre kind of like segment of Ding Dong Hello backstage, and we're told that this is a rehearsal for Ding Dong Hello. It's Bailey's version of Mean Tweets, the Jimmy Kimmel segment. But instead of mean tweets, she's reading sweet tweets, because these are all pro Bailey compliments. They're all nice, except for the final card at the end. And Bailey reads this, but judging by her facial reaction, where you could tell that it was probably quite insulting. So she doesn't read it and instead walks back through the fake door, very angry, as the segment simply ends. So not sure what other wrestling figure this was possibly attached to. What did you make of this?
It did at least make me wonder, like, okay, I'm very happy to see Bailey get a new program, because obviously, she's sort of been cycled out of the title picture for the time being. That's fine. I want to see her get a new program. I don't know who this I guess the opposite of a mystery fan, the mystery hater, could be. It did make me curious, so I guess it accomplished what it had to. It was a quick bit.
I mean, is that unusual though, to have a mystery hater on the internet? Like, I mean, it just seems like most tweets are negative. So
I think being on the internet and being on Twitter means, like, sooner, like, someone's gonna hate you. It's the given. But yeah, I guess it's also the idea that somehow this slipped into the cue cards with the tweets on it that she was reading. So it's like, clearly someone, I guess they did this a little while ago with the Sammy Awards, where Big E snuck an award in at the end. So it's like, she has someone who's not who doesn't just hate her, but who's trying to undermine her within the company. Now, I don't know who that could be.
It's got to be the same people as Sammy's crew. Like, it's got to be Blake Christian. Yeah. I blame the same TV people.
Bailey versus Blake Christian would probably be a really good match.
I think we're going to get like a evil TV crew as our new stable, perhaps. Corey Graves is in a steel cage. He is here to explain to us how a steel cage match works. And yeah, it does sound silly, especially to like hardcore fans like us. I actually like the segment though, because I think it emphasized, number one, the danger of a high fall from the top cage. They had a really nice camera shot from up there. Yeah. It also helps create anticipation for a match like this, because I mean, a cage really should be in itself presented as an attraction rather than just something kind of thrown together at the last minute. And this at least like increased my appetite for it a little bit more.
I don't mind taking the time to explain it again. Generally, I think on a show where we were 20 minutes in before we got to a wrestling match, this seemed like it took up a little too much time for me. If this had happened on Raw, I would have been fine with it. because they do have the extra time there. But on SmackDown, where things have to be a little tighter, this struck me as overlong. I did really like the camera, like showing the camera angles, though. I thought that was a cool idea, and if they could have just accomplished it, if they could have been a little more concise, I would have liked it more.
So we go to our steel cage match. It's the main event. Daniel Bryan versus Jey Uso. If Bryan wins, he gets Roman Reigns in a title match at Fastlane. Reigns and Heyman are outside to watch, and the match starts with Jey shoving Bryan's face into the fence right in front of Roman, as Roman simply says, "More." Bryan fights back, targets Jey's left arm and shoulder for the S-lock. They fight to the top as Jey hits a top rope Samoan drop. Back from commercial, Jey hits a springboard splash for 2, he hits a super kick for 2, and then they start fighting dirtier. Bryan delivers his crucifix elbows, Jey responds with big forearms from guard. They fight more up top, Bryan hits a butterfly suplex into the S-lock. Jey reaches for the rope, but there's no rope breaks in a steel cage match, so he taps as the camera cuts to a disapproving look from Roman Reigns. What do you think of the main event?
Pretty solid. I mean, it doesn't surprise me that with these two that they're going to have a good match. I thought it was really tough. Looking at that initial, the initial bit with Jey just grinding Daniel Bryan's face into the cage. Roman's reaction was just spot on there. I really liked that. That he wants to see someone suffer. I think that. Again, the ending, I kind of expected it. I didn't. I can't even remember the last time Jey Uso won a singles match.
Since he's been
someone in the chat room is going to point out that it was like a week and a half ago or something. I don't know, but the point is that he seems to have this position where he's the guy who loses so that Roman Reigns can win. No, someone said last week. It wasn't last week. That was a double countout. That one I can. I just saw like that one I remember. Beyond that, I'm not so sure. I did think at least too that the double countout did a decent job of establishing why Daniel Bryan should get a second chance, because other than that, like if he had lost just straight, then why would we be doing this? So yeah, I guess I get that. I thought it was solid. I did. It was the ending that I expected, and I guess like it does lead us towards this match at Fastlane, which I think will be a good match.
Yeah, the outcome of this one, I mean, was a pretty foregone conclusion. I thought it was a good match, though. They had enough time, good intensity from both men, and Reigns, to me, delivered some great subtle facial expressions that just kind of added, to the overall story. What did you think overall of this edition of SmackDown?
It was kind of middling for me. I thought very strong opening. Nothing on the rest of the show really lived up to that. I thought the main event was very solid. I thought it had moments throughout, but there were probably more. There was a lot of time during the show where I found myself just looking like, why is this happening? Why, like, what's going on with Chad and Otis and the Mysterios? What's going on with Rollins and Murphy? What's going on? Like, there was too much of that. And it's something, I don't know, maybe I'm grading on a curve, because maybe like if this was on Raw, I don't know if I would have had, it would have bothered me quite as much. But SmackDown's usually a tighter show. It's usually better written, and there usually aren't as many moments like that. So this was, I think, a lower caliber of SmackDown, elevated by a few good points.
I don't disagree. It was a mixed bag show for me. I'm enjoying Roman. I continue to enjoy him, and I do look forward to his match with Bryan, despite not really being able to buy into any sort of outcome besides Reigns winning.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the new Apollo, even though I'm very curious to hear from our audience, actually, like some reactions to that, because I could see that one being very divided. Not a fan at all of Sasha and Bella's direction, though. We wait and see if it's supposed to lead to something bigger with Reginald and Pearce, and who knows. Otis and Ray is in a pretty bad direction, I think, as is Cesaro and Rollins, even though the match will be great. So
yeah, again, there's a lot of matches that I think are going to be very, very good. I don't. The problem is just sort of keeping everything interesting until we get to those matches.
So at this point, we'd like to open it up to the phone lines. Thank you, everybody, for being incredibly patient. If you want to talk about SmackDown, if you want to talk about AEW Revolution, if you want to talk about who the mystery man is, if you want to talk about NXT, if you want to talk about anything except the season finale of WandaVision, because we're saving that for tomorrow night. No spoilers here, everybody. But anything else you want to talk about, get on the air right now by raising your hand in the Zoom chat room. We start off with Brian. Brian, what's going on?
Hey, good evening, Wayne and Kate. Good show tonight. So I have a couple quick comments and then a longer, deeper question. SmackDown I thought was kind of middle of the road. I thought the interplay with Bryan and Reigns and company I thought was the best. Murphy and Rollins was mind-boggling to me. I remember this story a couple of weeks ago or so that they hired a woman that used to work at IFC and supposedly brought in to help keep continuity, I think. So
yeah, you're right. What the
How's that working out for you, honey?
Yeah, who knows? I hope there's some follow-up in coming weeks if they care enough about Murphy. You asked about Apollo, opinions on him. I thought kind of walked a very fine line, and when he came out with that spear and the guards, I was thinking, what? So who knows? I was thinking like Last King of Scotland almost, the longer that promo went. But
I had the same thought.
Yeah, but his story I thought was quite strong. Jumping towards the mystery people on Revolution, we haven't seen Aleister Black in months, so maybe he could have been quietly released or his deal ran out, and we'll see Tommy End pop up in the ladder match.
That would be a pretty wild appearance because, I mean, if there's anything like that happening, it certainly hasn't been reported or even rumored. Yeah. So that would be really and I think that would be a big embarrassment in a way for the WWE to kind of get scooped like that with a guy who everybody sees so much talent in, except maybe one or two people Vince. In that company. Yeah.
Well, they should be embarrassed.
Absolutely.
Yes, but
he's one of my favorite guys, and I could not agree with you more.
Okay, and my last point, and then I'll hang up. PW Insider reporting earlier this week that WWE is mulling over making a takeover before WrestleMania 2 nights, Wednesday and Thursday. Mm-hmm. Night 1 on Wednesday would be on USA. Night 2 theoretically would be on the WWE Network and or Peacock. Now, the two big things about this, Night 1 on USA would strike me just as a regular NXT, though they have done special shows recently with Halloween Havoc, New Year's Evil, and such. And my other qualm is that TakeOver is normally a very tight, precise show. You get like 5 or 6 matches within 2.5 hours or so. Right now, I don't really see 2 nights of TakeOver-worthy matches being set up, although that could change between now and April. So just figured what your thoughts on all that would be if it happens. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, I mean, well, we've seen them do takeovers on TV. They're essentially just TV specials, and I don't think they'll have any issue filling 2 hours with hot matches. That roster is so good. Matches that you might have an interest in from a storyline perspective, that might be a different story. But
yeah, that's where I think the danger lies. I think they absolutely could. In fact, with almost every takeover, by the end of it, I'm like, oh, I wish there was another match. I wish so. But stories. I mean, that's.
Let's also remember, if these rumors are true of NXT moving after WrestleMania, this will also be the last NXT on a Wednesday. So we could see them wanting to, go out with a big bang. Since it's the timing right before WrestleMania, for some people, it might be their final NXT before they move up the roster. So maybe they'll throw a couple of those types of big stakes matches in there. But I mean, really, it's just a gimmick to try to get you to watch NXT, promote Peacock, as much as they can. And therefore, I think I kind of like it, rather than having one WrestleMania to look, or at least 2 nights of WrestleMania to look forward to. They're essentially kind of presenting an entire week's worth of programming, potentially even the Hall of Fame, for you to kind of really make that transition over to Peacock. So
yeah, I think Look, I watch a couple of hours of wrestling multiple nights per week. It's not going to, the idea that I'd have like there'd be an NXT on Wednesday and on Thursday is not going to be off-putting to me. They absolutely have the talent for it. Story development has gotten a little wonky, I find, since they've been more obviously trying to counterbook AEW. I think that there are some there are some people who they could heat up relatively quickly, but yeah, I hope that if that's the plan, that they already have some ideas mapped out and how to get there. And in NXT's case, I believe that could well be the case. And if you're telling me that was for the main roster, I'd be a little more iffy.
Let's go up next to Kevin. Kevin, what's on your mind?
Hi, everyone. Great show. I hope everyone's doing well. Yeah, as far as Apollo, I'm going to sit and wait. I think that this has the potential to be really, really good or really, really almost comedically bad. So I'm just going to wait and see. I really like his new look, like his specific look with the green, and his promo was really good. So I really like what they did, what he's doing. But around him and where they're going with the story, I think I'm just going to wait and see, because it has potential to go one way or the other on that.
You're right to be cautious. Yes.
Kate, you brought up a thought in my head about Roman. Do you think that they need to either add to the family or the stable, or change Roman's look? Like, I've always thought if you're going to do this mafia look, that the t-shirt and jeans look doesn't necessarily work, that he should be dressed up a bit more. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that the look, it's a good point. I think the look he has now is very generic. So yeah, you'd think that someone who obviously thinks so highly of himself would also want to present himself as a kind of powerful figure. I don't really know how I do it, but yeah, I think that they could work on that. Like I said, one of the things that kind of stuck with me is I've never gotten what it was that changed Jey Uso's mind, that took him from being Roman's literal number one contender to 100% on side, to the point where there's almost this like desperation on his part to prove himself. A friend of mine put it as he finds the sort of manicness of the Jey Uso character jarring. He's like, he looks like a drug addict, and there is that sort of sense where like he's the kind of addict trying to serve his dealer, and I want to understand that dynamic a little more. Maybe they do that by adding someone else to the stable, or like it needs a little more detail to me.
See, I do feel like there was, like, towards the end of that feud, like in those matches that he had with Roman, I felt like there were some real moments of complete surrender. Like, I give up. I've tried to beat you multiple times. You're the tribal chief. I can't beat you. Like, that to me was satisfying enough for me to be like, all of a sudden to now have this guy be like, now I'm your slave, because I see the light. I see that you are the only reason why our family is doing this well. I'll do whatever you want. But I also think that dynamic of like, is he always in service of the guy, is something that they could be teasing a whole lot more of. Is he completely loyal, or is he doing this for another reason down the road? And I don't get any indication that they have any plans of like playing with that dynamic at all.
No, and in that case, I found one of the things in the early build-up with that feud with Jey Uso, I was honestly finding Jey to be the more interesting character there, because again, he was the one who developed, he was the one who was changing. And so whereas Roman was sort of, and I get where you want him to have a certain sort of stability, you want him to be more stoic, you want him to play the leader that he believes himself to be. But but I'd like them to do something more with Jey, because I think that definitely he's shown that he's up to it, and even like adding a little bit more to his character might also help develop the whole story around Roman.
Yeah, I'm even thinking like if you went like as an example, and I don't know where Jimmy quite is here, but like if you brought Jimmy in as an example and he's able to win these matches that Jey isn't, there's another dynamic. Jey feels a little bit lower in that family totem pole.
I like that.
Yeah.
That'd be really good.
Something like that.
I like that a lot too, but I worry that the temptation would be there to put them in tag team matches. And we know when you're in the tag team division on any main roster, it's like you basically don't exist. So
punishment for something.
Yeah, so we'll see. Thank you very much for the call. Great call, Kevin. Let's go up next to Hansi. Hansi, what's going on?
What's going on, Wai? Kate, good work tonight.
Thank you.
I enjoyed your night. With the Apollo crew again, SmackDown was okay. Yeah, I agree with you, Wai, that like the Sasha Bianca thing has kind. I don't know. I mean, maybe they'll get back on track when Fastlane is done, or whatever. But right now they kind of, I don't know. It just feels kind of middle of the road right now. But with the Apollo Crews thing, I think again, like what I follow like a lot of like personalities online, right? So to see if anything with cultural thing is offensive to anybody, I check to see like some of the black fans that the personalities that I follow to see what they're like, what if like something like, so at least like, I'll know if like, okay, this is a perspective. A lot of them were into it. You know what I mean? And they were kind of defending it. See, and the thing I think the disconnect is, right, is that whenever you have like something about culture, like people are so used to like when it's done over the top kind of, that like it looks stereotypical sometimes, right? But like if this is Apollo's like idea and like he's explaining like why he's doing the accent, he doesn't come up with the accent, I can kind of like get behind about it, right? It's not like Apollo that I'm worried about or his ideas. It's just like I wonder if it's like Vince McMahon's gonna go over the top with it. You know what I mean? Because of those one fan I was talking to, and I'll say that WWE has a good track record of this. And he goes, Saba Simba is one example, kind of, right? And I'm like, yeah, you know what I mean. I don't think it's that bad, but I kind of don't like blame people for kind of being like skeptical whether this is like a good thing or a bad thing. You know what I mean?
Totally understand what you mean. Absolutely.
Definitely.
I just really would hope that like Apollo himself would have a lot more autonomy in the creative for something like this, and that he wasn't just simply playing somebody's creation. The fact that like he's been so specific about his own like, I would hope that a lot of this is coming from him, and that if anything crosses the line, especially in 2021, when this company I think should be as careful about any sort of racial stereotype that they present, I would hope that he would be free to speak up, and that I hope there would be plenty of other people in the company who would speak up in defense of anything that might be bad.
I think that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no. Go ahead. I'll finish off after you're done.
Okay. What all I was going to add was that I get the feeling from the way in which he's delivered his promos that these are coming from him. And that does, I think the qualms that I had about it were more seeing what it looked like. And he kind of redeemed that for me. And of course, look, I'm a white lady. It's not up to me to feel offended on behalf of other people. Like if African American, if Black fans are good with that, if they think it's if they feel it's a positive representation, then it is a positive representation. There are some qualms. There are historical reasons to be nervous about this kind of presentation.
No, yeah, I know, and totally accept. I totally get it, because sometimes I'm kind of like on and off like with what's acceptable and what's not, because I've been that shock jock edgelord kind of environment and all that. But before I go, I just want to kind of get your guys' thoughts. So like for like AEW, I listen, this card, like it might go down as like one of like the better cards of AEW, maybe even like in the last couple of years for wrestling in general, maybe because of the way it's hyped. I thought like the Go Home show was one of the best Go Home shows for a pay-per-view of any company in a long while. I'm just curious. Do you guys think that we should be like overhyping, or are you guys like setting your standards low for who the surprises are gonna be? Because when Tony Khan overhypes something, like, and listen, I want to like the guy, But sometimes the guy, as a Pakistani guy, and he's a Pakistani guy, I want to say he comes across like a dork. You know what I mean? So sometimes he just goes overboard with the overhypeness, and it kind of pisses me off a little bit because he does this a lot, and I just don't want him to keep doing it where we get disappointed and we don't trust his word. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to become WWE where we go, oh, another surprise, huh? Whatever. But I'll leave you guys with that, whatever. But I'm looking forward to the weekend with AEW, and I'll be here for the post show afterwards.
Thank you, Hansi. What's your excitement level for Revolution, Kate?
I'm pretty excited. I think that there are a lot of. My one worry is that I hope it doesn't start to feel long. There are a lot of matches on the show, and there's a tag team battle royal, which we'll have to. Again, this is another one where they might have wanted to explain the rules, because it seems to me the last time that they did that kind of thing, that both members of the tag team had to be eliminated. That match could get very long very quickly if that's the case. I think, but no, look, I'm very excited for it, and I'm trying to do, as Hansi just said, we should. I'm trying to temper my expectations a little bit, because I don't want to get to the point where I'm so excited for it that if anything even slightly underdelivers, I'll be sort of upset. I agree with what he said, that Tony Khan has burned some people with promises of big announcements before. I don't think he's done it lately. So we'll see what happens with the big signings. I'm mostly interested to see what happens. I think that there's the potential for a lot of really great matches, and that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm curious to see what happens with the women, because I don't see any way that Hikaru Shida doesn't retain her title, and at the same time I feel that they've done such a good job of establishing a depth in the division that okay, now they need the stories to go along with it, and that might be a little bit of a struggle for her coming out of what is probably going to be a pretty dominant win.
Let's go up next to Nick. Nick, what's going on?
What's going on, guys? Happy Friday. I'm still laughing at Hansi calling Tony Khan a dork.
He does have a bit of that image. Yes. Speaking as a dork myself, of course.
Yeah, me as well. Yeah,
we're all
dorks. On Apollo, I thought everyone made a lot of great points about Apollo Crews tonight. And the thing I will say is that anytime someone brings in, because I'm also an immigrant way, so I understand that experience and I empathize with that as well. And I think anytime that someone brings in an aspect of their culture, of their heritage into their profession, like we got to remember, like this is a professional space for these people, like that requires a lot of risk on their part. And so I would hope that, I agree with you, Kate, totally, that I hope he has a lot of control over what he brings to TV every week. And the thing about the accent, because I loved everything about it aside from the accent. I'm an actor and I do dialect coaching. And I think the tough thing about the accent is we've heard Apollo Crews talk on our screens every single week up until this point. So for him to introduce this aspect of his character out of the blue is a little jarring. I think he'll definitely improve. I thought the accent itself was actually pretty good, like you were saying.
See, Nick, like I never at any point think of him like simply adopting this as if this is his real voice. I mean, when he says this is my real voice, I think he means, spiritually, this is the way I'm going to make myself sound. I'm going to force this onto all of you, even though I don't normally speak like this. I found it like a really interesting heel tactic.
Yeah, I really liked it. And I think it could work. I think the whole presentation itself, I think really worked for me as well. I think you guys are absolutely right in that it felt like a babyface promo. It felt like he was trying to and he succeeded in getting me onto his side. And I wanted to see him with this package, with that belt on his shoulder. And so I think Big E is going to need to dig down deep and use some of that charisma that we saw in his 24 documentary, that authentic Etor, to try and go toe-to-toe with this authentic Apollo somewhat.
Yeah, well, and that would make for a great feud, wouldn't it? Certainly more than what these two had going prior. So I think, it's seeing several people wanting to talk about this Apollo thing. There's at least interest in this program
Absolutely.
right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, heightened interest, and it's up to Big E and really the writers, I guess, to really kind of make this special, because there's at least some potential there. I definitely think like Apollo maybe went too sympathetic tonight, so maybe he would have to kind of twist his logic in a way to make you hate him a bit more. But that a lot of that is on Big E as well.
Yeah.
Anything else, Nick?
One last thing. I thought you guys brought up an excellent point about kind of the heel face dynamics on both shows right now, and as it relates to Sasha. And I was thinking all week after Lashley won the title, and like, what a week for visibility for minority wrestlers in the WWE this week. But with Lashley holding that title and him doing his sort of media run this week, I was really impressed with how I'd never really heard Bobby Lashley talk all that much. And I was really impressed with the way he came off. He sounded super authentic. And I'm just wondering if, we've seen Drew McIntyre come off as sort of the WWE corporate babyface manufactured champion in times before. If they can clue into something with Bobby Lashley, if they accidentally get to Raymond James Stadium and Drew McIntyre is getting booed and Bobby Lashley is getting jeered as a heel, especially since the Hurt Business is so charismatic.
What do you think, Kate?
I think that's a very legitimate danger. And I'm a big fan of Drew McIntyre. I think that when he is allowed to project more of his own personality, he can be incredibly charismatic. And he definitely, like, he has the qualities that they need for a champion. But he's been there for a year, and they haven't really had the chance to test drive him in front of an audience so much as a babyface, except with his Royal Rumble win, which before COVID, he hasn't really been tested as a champion. I know that he has a lot of supporters, but online I see he has a lot of detractors as well. And for exactly what you just said, that he's a bit of the cookie cutter, the more generic corporate title holder. And I do think that there's a danger that Lashley is the one who gets the crowd pop, not Drew. I hope it doesn't happen, but I think that there's a good story going in there. But yeah, I definitely think that could blow up in their faces.
We wait to see, like, how what volume, I suppose, this like partial crowd at Raymond James Stadium will sound like. I don't doubt that they'll probably still like pipe in a lot of their own audio to really kind of clean things up. So in the end, I feel like they'll do if they feel like there's a danger there, I think they'll do what they can to like minimize it. But it's going to be a completely unique, like thing that we haven't had to deal with in wrestling in a year's time. They've had complete carte blanche about how their audience reacts to all these different characters. And so if this crowd will make a lot of different noise, it'll be a really interesting experiment. But something tells me like a partial crowd won't make that drastic of a difference to what they're already planning.
That's quite possible. And I think that if it would not be out of the question that they mute the crowd noise if it's not going the way that they want it to.
Interesting. Whoa.
Yeah, if they
sort of that for the future.
that down a little.
That's awful. Like, I mean, good for them, but like terrible for everybody else if they started doing all that.
Very Roman Reigns circa 2016 if they started doing that again, especially right as the fans are coming back. I feel like that would be kind of a bad look on their part. Anyways, thank you guys. Thank you, Kate, for stepping up. I really enjoyed the show.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Way, I'm really excited for REWIND-A tomorrow. A lot of stuff to talk about.
So much. Join me, WH and Nate. Thank you very much for the plug, Nick. 10 o'clock Eastern tomorrow night. Available for all Post Wrestling Cafe patrons. So we shall talk to you all about that then. If you haven't watched it, watch it right now, or right after the show. I mean, let's go up next to Muggin. Muggin, what's going on?
Hello, guys. Hello again. Kate. Great show. Couple things because I've been listening to some of the calls. I mean, Jimmy Uso was set to return in the top of the year. It's now March. I don't know what the holdup is. I mean, I could definitely see a scenario that instead of like putting the Usos back together, I could see the potential for a brother versus brother match at WrestleMania because both guys have gone on record about facing one another at a WrestleMania. before and I could definitely see that happen instead of doing the expected thing of pairing the Usos as Roman's underlings. What do you guys think?
I feel like WrestleMania is a little too close because seeing where Jay's at, I don't see him getting a singles match with a month to go essentially to build to WrestleMania. But I don't discount that happening at another show down the line. I think it's also interesting thinking about where Jimmy might potentially end up. Maybe he'll be on Raw. Naomi is on Raw. Could we see them split up that way?
I mean, I hope they stay together because they're the best tag. They're one of the best tag teams in the past decade. So, and another question, just regards to NXT. There's this moment in the beginning of the show where Timothy Thatcher was walking through the door, and then Marcel Bartel was right beside him. And given their history outside of NXT, with Walter, do you see Timothy Thatcher joining forces with Imperium?
Seems to be the tease. I mean, I don't know about joining, but working a program, they're certainly hitting on their history with his history with Ring Conf and the group. I don't know if I would turn him back heel so soon after he just turned. What do you think, Kate?
I apologize. I haven't seen the episode, at least not the full version. But yeah, I can see them doing it. I just find that as long as they have the sort of lane count separated, that the possibility for the stories there are limited. You've got Walter in the UK, and you've got Marcel and Fabian Eichner, who are part of the US show, and so I don't know what changes they can make there because that whole thing hinges on Walter, and so without him there, I don't know how many changes you can make.
Oh, and one more thing, with NXT possibly moving to Tuesdays in April, and I know Sportsnet just got the deal to air the show live every Wednesday. Do you think Canada will follow suit? Because I don't want to have to resort to alternative means again. And I'm looking forward to Rwanda tomorrow night, Way.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, really unfortunate timing, I would say, for Sportsnet to, I suppose, announce that. But I do see them following suit because, I mean, I also don't know what is in that time slot on Sportsnet 360. Are you aware, Kate?
I'm not. What I would say is any Canadian company is going to be relieved to be able to move a show out of the way of hockey broadcasts, and Wednesday's always going to be busier than Tuesday for hockey. So I think what I'm wondering is if WWE, when they were negotiating this with Rogers, if they didn't tell them that this was a possibility, then that is just a horrible, horrible business decision. I would be livid. I would be absolutely livid if I were Sportsnet and I found out that 2 weeks after we signed this deal and finally are able to broadcast the whole show in Canada, that, oh, by the way, it's moving to another night in the States, so you're still not broadcasting it at the same time that Americans are seeing it. So I hope that this was discussed during their negotiation period.
Up next, we got a Steppy Tay. Steppy Tay, thanks for joining the show.
Hi, guys. How are you?
Very well. What's going on?
Good.
Excellent. I would give SmackDown, I thought it was okay, and I would give it 7 out of 10 chicken poppins with a tin of Pepsi, maybe a small taters, and then just the tiniest little macaroni salad.
Do they have Mary Brown's in Montreal, Kate?
Not that I'm aware of. We are at Saint-Hubert, or St. Hubert is the big one here, although there's also, that's the big chain, and then there's a couple of sort of institutions that are known for their chicken in the city, which are just individual locations.
And actually,
I have found the discussion of poutine very interesting.
Yeah, that segues into my major question, my hard-hitting question. I've lived in Montreal. I went to the National Theatre School of Canada, and my favorite poutine place was Chez Claudette. I'm wondering what your favorite poutine place is.
Uh-oh. I'm with Pollock on this one. I don't like it.
Are you serious? Oh my God. I thought I was giving Pollock a week off.
I know.
Wow.
I'm listening to this going, and then
Oh my God. That is insane.
I'm like, oh my God, I really
that
like
is like that's absolutely insane. You don't eat poutine?
I know. I'll never be accepted. I'll never be accepted fully here.
Never.
Now, it's there are a number of places that do the sort of classic poutine, like Le Fleurs and
Belle
Province. Belle Province is sort of those are the sort of classic ones. Every place has their own sort of spin on poutine. Like everything is poutine now. Sort of, that's the Montreal version of everything is cake. Everything is poutine. So there are lots of options available. I will tell you, I only ever I tried poutine once, and it was a case where I had been drinking a little bit, and I was eating it, and unfortunately it was one of these things, like I finally decided I was going to try a proper Belle Province poutine, and I swear to God, I sobered up as I was eating it. So I just looked down and seeing this thing that looks like someone's brain spread out on the table. I'm not into it.
The gravy and fry. Come on.
I know. So yes, I'm a very bad Montrealer.
Obviously.
And I'm not born here, and they will never accept me because of this. But French? Yeah, I do. Yes.
Well, you're more well-versed than I am.
Man, Stepite always getting the scoops here out of our hosts and guests. Wow. You know what? I think John will be very,
to
very happy.
Romano's is my other question, Wai. Sorry. Have you ever been to
I have not. No, I don't believe so.
Oh, Portuguese chicken. It's the best.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. There's
amazing.
There's a place near us that's just called Puri Puri, and they are incredible. Like that's actually, if I'm going to go for chicken, that's what I'm going Portuguese, definitely.
Yeah, it's the best.
Anyway, thank you as always, Stepite. Always appreciate it.
Can I ask one wrestling question?
Are you sure you want to do that? If you must. All right. If you want to get off topic here, but go ahead.
And again, I'm going to Christian because he's my favorite. Is anything short of Christian in terms of like this surprise guy? Is that going to serve? Because I think if Christian showed up on AEW, it'd be amazing. Because he could actually be a main eventer there. And the whole problem with his WWE run was he was just short of that. They recognized him as being pretty good, but I think AEW could actually capitalize. I know he has a contract with WWE, or I've heard that.
Yeah, I've seen Raj Giri report that. I don't know how these contracts work.
I believe he was the one he said that he confirmed it with the WWE. So that's pretty serious. But no, I'm with you. I would really like to see it be Christian. I also find Tony Khan really likes people who can fill multiple roles, who can do a lot of different things, who can be in ring, who can be characters, who can maybe do commentary, who could cover a lot of bases. And Christian ticks all of those boxes. And then, of course, hearing this person referred to as Hall of Fame caliber or Hall of Fame worthy, it does just put that out there. It's like, does he mean that this person isn't in a Hall of Fame, or maybe isn't in a Hall of Fame on their own? Which Christian isn't.
Yeah,
not as a single star.
The ultimate guy to put in there, because he has been historically the sidekick to Edge. Well, he was always my favorite.
Yeah,
I just can't believe he hasn't already made an appearance in the WWE with this Edge storyline. Yeah. It is so perfect.
Yeah, and this whole idea that we were supposed to get an Edge versus Edge and Daniel Bryan versus Roman and Jey Uso. It's like, well, we thought that we might be getting a tag team match at Fastlane, but it wasn't that tag team.
Yeah, and without that, it's like, where does he fit in?
There's certainly not as much interest, in my opinion, in like a Christian singles run without the Edge attachment. I think there's tremendous interest there is interest in a Christian kind of return, but there's far more interest to me in an Edge and Christian reunion. And all the things, all the storytelling you can do before you break off into singles feuds, before you break off into a feud between the two of them. Like that to me is huge. Imagine Edge with the championship defending against Christian. How amazing would that be? Why would they not capitalize on that?
It would be amazing, way, but like historically, WWE doesn't treat Christian like that. So like imagine showing up as Christian Cage in fucking AEW, and it would be bananas. It would be bananas. Like, because they could do whatever. They could have him feud with Omega if they wanted, or Moxley coming off of the loss or whatever. But like that would be interesting. It would be way more interesting than what WWE I think would do with him, which would be use him as a sidekick. No?
Thank you very much, Steffi, for the call. Appreciate it. The investigation and everything. Let's go to our last call of the night. I believe this is Jake. Jake, what's going on?
Hey guys, can you hear me good?
Yes, we can.
Yep.
All right, thanks. I mean, how on earth can I follow that? But, yeah, for real. Yeah. Thanks, Kate, for jumping in this week. It's been awesome.
Thank you, David. Thank you. Like I said, very excited to do it. My pleasure.
It's awesome. And by the way, Wai, if you don't mind me promoting here, next week, next Friday, I'm going to be with Braden and Davey with the Up Next Patreon, and I'm going to do like a retro review that I picked. And I know this is an event that is fond for your hearts. I'm going to be they're going to be reviewing the 1994 Super J Cup, which is going to be very exciting. It's one of my introduction to Japanese wrestling, so I'm looking forward to it.
It is one of the classic shows in wrestling history, so that's a great choice, and I look forward to hearing you and Braden and Davey talk about it. And by the way, just a quick plug for those guys one more time. They have right now on their free feed the best death matches ever with the two of them, and Damian Abraham giving them a list of his own favorite death matches. So if you're looking just to kind of whet your appetite for what to expect on Sunday, this is a perfect podcast to listen to and watch along. So I recommend that. That's available on the free feed right now as a preview of their Patreon, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks so much, Wai. Just two quick points here. I was listening to Tony Khan's interview at the Wrestling Observer website with Meltzer this week, and he mentioned some things about obviously there's Dynamite and there's Dark as well, but and then there's going to be the Future Elevation show, but then also he's still going to be doing the next 1 hour show for TNT or one of the Turner networks down the line. Here's the thing. Maybe like a little bit of a qualm here, as an old friend used to say on the law back then, more is more. So are you guys concerned at all about the risk of a little bit of overkill here, because there might be adding maybe a lot of content thrown at us at such short notice?
Not really at this point, at least not for me. I really enjoy what they've done now. I mean, I may be different than a number of fans. Like I really enjoy, I watch Dark weekly. And I like that it is something very different, I think, than a standard wrestling show. And I understand why people would get very frustrated with it if you're expecting something like a Dynamite or SmackDown or like Impact, it's going to seem weird, and it's not going to seem as engaging. So I think that I can see myself being able to enjoy their different programming in different ways. I do the second television show, I think, is going to be an opportunity to really expand storylines and build other characters. Like basically they're going to have this third hour to add to because there's already people who are getting underutilized on the roster. I like the idea of still being able to see the kind of people that you get on Dark who are new and who maybe aren't signed, who they're almost test driving to see how audiences react to them, because I know with a number of the people on Dark where they've gotten a really solid reaction right away, that they've started featuring them more, that they've started bringing them in and even giving them wins. Like the ones that I can think of most recently are Bear Country and Danny Limelight, and I really hope that they are signing those guys long term. So it's a different experience. Like I don't think I'm going to get tired of it, but there's a risk, I think, with more casual fans that they're not going to be excited enough to tune into all of the programming, whether or not that becomes a hurdle. It remains to be seen.
I don't think those shows are made for your casual fans, though. Like I'm personally, I don't watch Dark. But I will tune into a match that I hear a lot of people talk about. And I kind of look at all that stuff as like optional programming, the same way like 205 Live might be for some people. Like if you just can't get enough of like, WWE, watch Main Event. If you can't get enough of Dynamite, you want to be that much more plugged into it, like watch Dark. I do expect this like extra hour on TNT to be more first run programming, more highly produced, more necessary, more required. So I think that still makes it pretty manageable. If like in order to keep up for the pay-per-views, you need to invest 3 hours of your week to it. I think that's fine. And if you wanted to be deeper involved, then watch the rest.
I'll just see what happens then, but we'll just see how they execute it. So I'll keep an open mind on that. So, but yeah, looking forward to Revolution this weekend. And one more. I'm not going to spoil it here. But are you Wai, you're going to continue with WH? You're going to continue with the Falcon Winter Soldier reviews, because that's the one I'm really looking forward to.
Yes, we are. We'll be continuing them.
Yes, that'll be awesome, Wai. So, and I think one New Japan question here, and I'll be happy to and I'll let it go here. With the IWGP Heavyweight Championship and the IC Championship now being officially unified, with all that, and I think it's kind of interesting that it's going to be a brand new lineage here, and then they're going to like discard the history of the original Heavyweight Championship. Maybe it's just me being nitpicky here. I don't know if the IC title was the right title to let go of. I don't really care for the never openweight title and all that, because I'm pretty sure like with the IC title there's still some good prestige that can still hold up to that. It's like Nakamura really elevated that title up and really continue on even after he left, and still made it like a relevant mid-card title. But I just want to get your quick thoughts on that way, and that they're officially going to unify it.
Thank you very much for the call, Jake. I'm personally who's not as tied to like title lineages as maybe most are. I personally, the fact of the matter is they needed to promote these kind of double Tokyo Dome events, and they decided to do that. Would make the most sense to have an IC and a World Championship tournament, and then unifying those belts. I think back to like all of that, unifying the world with the never wouldn't make as much sense. They've kind of they're at the point now where I guess they want to kind of limit their championships. To me, a belt is what the booking ultimately makes of it, and I think you talk about the prestige with the IC title. I think you could build as much with the never. You just have to build it. You just have to have the guys with hold it. You have to book it properly. I think you could view it as prestigiously as you have the IC. Any thoughts on that, Kate?
I pretty much agree with you. I think that the problem in the last year is that with the titles being on the same person, whether they were unified or not, they lacked a sort of secondary title. They lacked that title that is sort of the stepping stone before you get to the heavyweight title. I think that I'm okay. Again, I'm not as familiar with the lineage or the history, so I think that I'm fine with the idea of unifying. I actually think that they could do more with the open weight title just because of the open nature of it. because anyone can compete with it. And I think that could absolutely be their secondary title and should be. And look, they have it on Tanahashi now. That's a huge name. It does not, it feels right now like the second most important title.
Yeah. So we shall see going forward what they do with it. And I'm kind of curious to see what this belt design looks like. So there's that. We're at the end of the show. This was a long one, but it was a very engaging one. I loved some of the conversations from everybody, and in particular, the chance to get to talk to you, Kate, and getting to.
I'm really grateful for the opportunity to been on the show. It's really enjoyable, and thanks very much for having. I told you I talk a lot, so if this has been a long one, I know it's at least partly my fault.
We have a lot of time on Fridays. More than happy to entertain it, and hopefully we get to do it again. But if people want to follow you and your thoughts on pro wrestling, where can they do that?
Easiest is on Twitter. I am She Rants About Wrestling. All one, no spaces, no double spaces, no anything. Or my handle is actually She Rants About W1. For whatever reason. So more than welcome. I'm there mouthing off a lot. And I would love the opportunity to interact with people more there.
Kate's also very active at forum.postwrestling.com, and you've made some appearances on the Discord as well. So we encourage everybody to interact with all of us on those channels. And just go to the show post if you just want to click on any of the links of anything we mentioned today. We still have a sale going on this week for our post-Marvel shirt, 15% off for all patrons. And again, join John Pollock and Phil Chair Talk, Lord of the Cord, tomorrow for their UFC post-show. That starts at 1 a.m.-ish, whenever the UFC ends. And you can join me, WH, and Nate Milton for our WandaVision live finale discussion, hoping to get a lot of your opinions, just like we are tonight, on one of the most talked about TV series finales in quite some time. So thank you everybody for listening, especially all of you guys who tuned into Zoom, and we'll talk to you next week.